Throughout the long history of professional wrestling, there have been many legendary performers, but only a select few have ever been able to stake a claim at being the greatest of all time. Like with any sport, the pro wrestling GOAT debate has been raging since the very beginning, from Milo of Croton during the days of the ancient Olympics, to Abraham Lincoln chokeslamming the Confederacy. Then when pro wrestling really began to gain steam at the turn of the 20th century, whoa boy were there debates! Everyone and their mother was debating Joe Stecker versus Ed Strangler Lewis, even more fiercely than the endless Jordan versus LeBron debates that keep ESPN alive today. My great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother even kept one of the teeth she knocked out of a grimy Strangler simp. Those people had no class. Enter the era of the television, and you start with Gorgeous George, the scariest not-actually-gay man that every homophobe this side of Stonewall wanted to see get his cute bottom kicked. Then there was Antonino Rocca, the Argentinian flying man and inventor of the dropkick. And how can we forget La Maravilla Enmascarada, the first wrestler to bring wrestling in a mask to a main event scene. Move into the era post-Civil Rights Act of 1984, and you'll start to hear more international names along with the regular American hotshots. Harley Race, Terry Funk, Dusty Rhodes, Bruno Sammartino, Ric Flair, Sting, Hulk Hogan, Bret Hart. Then there was Stone Cold Steve Austin, John Cena, Bryan Danielson, Samoa Joe, Kenny Omega, Jeff Jarrett, and that's just naming people born in North America. Throw in some international flair, and we suddenly add in Riki Dozan, Tatsumi Fujinami, Antonio Inoki, Giant Baba, The Great Kabuki, The Great Muta, Mitsuharu Misawa and his eternal rival Toshiaki Kawada, along with Kazuchika Okada and Hiroshi Tanahashi, and that's only naming Japanese wrestlers. Move south of the US border, and you get names like El Santo, Mil Mascaras, Blue Demon, Gory Guerrero, Perro Aguayo, Rene Gallardo, Carlo Flugarde, Cavernario Galindo, Emilio Charles Jr., Dr. Wagner Jr., Pentagon Jr., La Parca Jr., no, I'm kidding. Then there was also Conan, Vampiro, and others. But do you know who always gets left out of these discussions? Of course, Yoshinari Ogawa. I'm glad we're on the same page. I knew you were smart. So what makes Yoshinari Ogawa the greatest wrestler of all time? Well, firstly, he primarily wrestled for companies that will let me use footage of his matches without copyright striking the hell out of this channel. That counts for something. A hell of a lot in this case. Points to Ogawa for picking smart companies. Moving on, Ogawa was a genius. Why wrestle in the way you've been taught in wrestling school when you can instead be a little shithead that takes every advantage possible to win a match, regardless of if your opponent or the dunces in the crowd think you're abiding by the rules of fair play? That's what made Ogawa great. He only cared about winning, and he would do it in any fashion he could legally get away with so long as the referee's back was turned for a convenient few seconds. He was a true in-ring capitalist. That's what wrestling needs more of. People who take what they want and refuse to settle for anything that doesn't work for them. Now, for some unknown reason, I suddenly have the urge to say, brother. But on that topic, Ogawa was a great brother in combat. You know you're good when the undeserved star of the company picks you to be his new tag team partner. Mitsuharu Misawa knew that without Kenta Kobashi by his side following the amicable breakup of the Super Generation Army, Kobashi was actually cheating on him with a little thing called being a good wrestler, Misawa knew that he would be exposed as being, well, not that. His entire career is this wild case of someone failing upward over and over again. I just don't get it. But with such a threat looming, Misawa knew he needed to call on one man to hide his disgusting lack of wrestling talent. Yoshinari Ogawa. Trained by the legendary Genichiro Tenryu, Ogawa surpassed him so fast that Tenryu had to leave All Japan to go beg the CEO of an eyeglass company to make him his own wrestling promotion where he wouldn't have to look like absolute garbage next to the supernova of talent and sex appeal that was his recent trainee. Misawa saw all of this unfold during a time when he was holding a world title for some godforsaken reason, and knew that if Kobashi ever kicked his dumbass to the curb, he had a new man to hitch his wagon to. And hitch like a bitch he did! But Misawa's worthlessness was too much for even Ogawa to overcome, despite mighty efforts in the 1998 and 1999 Real World Tag League tournaments, which saw Ogawa basically wrestle handicap matches because the overpushed Emerald Apple of Giant Baba's eye couldn't so much as throw a punch that would make a baby flinch to save his life. After Baba died, though, his wife was so afraid of letting Ogawa properly spread his wings in All Japan's main event scene, following the tradition of her dead coward husband, that it led to a full-blown mutiny in the All Japan locker room. Almost every wrestler was so disgusted with Motoko Baba's treatment of such an unstoppable talent that Mitsuharu Misawa, making the first good decision of his entire life, convinced every wrestler to take out second and third mortgages on their home to fund the creation of Pro Wrestling Noah, where Ogawa could finally shine. Misawa turned out to be a much better booker than he was a wrestler. Low bar, but still. Misawa knew that if he pushed Ogawa too strongly from day 1, it would turn the fans against him. So he waited until day 2, letting Sari Sap Jun Akiyama be the first GHC heavyweight champion. Akiyama would then lose the belt to Ogawa in a surprisingly competitive squash match where Ogawa graciously let Akiyama look like he had some wrestling ability. So not only is Ogawa a wrestling god, he's also a kind god, empathetic to those beneath him. Ogawa was such a sure bet to be a megastar that Microsoft even offered to sponsor the event where he'd be winning the title, knowing that such an amazing moment would surely raise their profile with today's youth. Some argue that this sponsorship was the main reason the original Halo sold as well as it did. People saw Ogawa win the world title on an Xbox logo and were convinced that if they bought an Xbox, they too could be as amazing in life as Ogawa was. Of course, they were wrong, but their lives were absolutely improved by making decisions based on what logo Yoshinari Ogawa spread his sweat across. This match turned Ogawa into a god among men in the eyes of the Noah audience. The fans quickly dubbed him Rat Boy. You know what rats are? Resilient, and that's exactly what Yoshinari Ogawa is. You know what boys are? Crafty, and that's exactly what Yoshinari Ogawa is. Rat Boy is the perfect encapsulation of everything that made Yoshinari Ogawa the greatest wrestler of all time. He had the craftiness to make the most of his resilience, and the resilience to give him time for his craftiness to slowly suffocate his opponents. So did Ogawa ever lose the GHC Heavyweight Championship? No, of course not, and it's for that reason that Noah is currently the most popular pro wrestling company in the world and in all of history. I've been watching 5 different Noah shows at the same time while recording this video. It's just a fact of life at this point, for many including yourself, and it's all because of Yoshinari Ogawa. May we bask in his ratness.